Lieutenant Sofia Navarro had always been invisible in the right ways. At 32, she'd conducted more successful intelligence operations than agents 10 years her senior, but she'd never been the one demanding recognition in the field office or sharing war stories over drinks. While others boasted about their exploits and vied for high-profile assignments, Sofia studied cryptographic systems until dawn and practiced counter-interrogation techniques until they became second nature. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The briefing room at Westridge Intelligence Center buzzed with the usual pre-mission energy. 37 operatives filled the austere space, their civilian attire betraying no hint of their true professions. The wall-mounted screens displayed mission parameters for Operation Shadowfall, the largest joint intelligence operation with allied nations in the past decade. Sofia sat in her customary spot, third row from the back, notebook open, mind focused. Director Marcus Hayes strode to the podium, his presence commanding immediate silence. A former Special Forces operative with 20 years in field intelligence, Hayes had a reputation for running precise operations and protecting his people at all costs. His gaze swept the room with calculated assessment. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the culmination of 2 years' work," Hayes announced, his voice resonating with authority. 8 high-value assets embedded across 3 hostile territories, coordinated extraction within a 72-hour window, and 1 chance to bring our people home without compromising ongoing intelligence networks. The Secretary of Defense is watching. Our allied partners are watching. Fail this, and years of intelligence gathering collapses. Scattered murmurs rippled through the assembled operatives. Sofia remained silent. She'd memorized the operation parameters 3 times already, analyzed potential extraction routes, and identified contingency plans for various compromise scenarios. This wasn't just another mission. It was the most complex extraction the agency had attempted since the Tallman crisis of 2018. Primary Field Coordinator Assignment, Hayes continued, indicating the main screen. Team Alpha goes to Captain James Mercer. James, you'll handle the Northwestern Sector, 3 assets, priority extraction protocol. Quote, Captain Mercer rose with practiced confidence, the easy smile that had made him a department favorite firmly in place. At 34, he embodied everything Sofia wasn't: charismatic, politically connected, and unfailingly visible. He'd earned his code name Quicksilver not just for his adaptability in the field, but for his ability to navigate agency politics with remarkable dexterity. "Understood, sir," Mercer said, his resonant voice carrying naturally through the room. "My team will have those assets secured and transported before the opposition realizes they're gone." Hayes nodded approvingly. Team Bravo goes to Captain Wilson. Charlie goes to Captain Reynolds. Both operatives acknowledged with professional nods and confident expressions. Sofia waited patiently. She'd worked the southeastern corridor more times than anyone in the room. She designed the fail-safe protocols that Mercer was still familiarizing himself with. She'd pioneered the silent extraction technique that had saved compromised agents in Stalingrad that others were still trying to master. Team Delta, Hayes paused, his eyes finding Sofia in the crowd. Lieutenant Navarro, you'll be running technical support. Non-essential deployment. Stay off the primary channels unless specifically requested. The words hit like a physical blow. Non-essential. In a room full of field operatives, there was no more dismissive label. Several heads turned her way. Expressions ranging from sympathy to barely concealed satisfaction. Someone in the 4th row, she couldn't see who, whispered just loud enough to be heard. "Guess they need someone to monitor comms while the real agents work." Sofia's pen remained steady in her hand. She didn't look up from her notebook, didn't allow her expression to change. But inside, something resolute and unyielding began to crystallize. She'd been conducting field operations for 9 years. She'd orchestrated more successful extractions than any operative in the division. She'd never lost an asset, never compromised a network, never failed to complete an objective. And now she was non-essential. "Any questions?" Hayes asked, scanning the room. Sofia could have raised her hand, could have asked why an operative with her record was being sidelined for an operation this critical, could have pointed out that her last 7 performance evaluations had been flawless. Instead, she closed her notebook and stood with the others when Hayes dismissed them. As the room emptied, she caught fragments of conversation from the other team leaders. Going to be a career maker. Hope they're prepared for contingencies. Heard Navarro got bumped to desk duty. She walked out into the crisp autumn air, her footsteps silent on the concrete walkway. The facility stretched before her, a labyrinth of nondescript buildings housing some of the nation's most sensitive operations. Her workstation sat in the farthest building, away from the command center where the primary teams were already beginning preparation. Nobody was watching. Nobody cared where the technical support specialist set up her equipment. But as Sofia approached her assigned building, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Not anger, not resentment, but a quiet, burning certainty. They thought she was too methodical, too cautious, too thorough for their high-speed operation. They were about to learn the difference between fast and prepared. The operations center hummed with pre-mission activity that evening. Sofia pushed through the reinforced security doors, hoping to access the latest intelligence updates and retreat to her quarters for final preparation. Instead, she walked into what felt like a celebration she hadn't been invited to attend. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Captain James Mercer commanded attention at the central planning table, surrounded by junior operatives hanging on his every word. His voice carried across the room with the natural authority of someone who'd never questioned his place in the hierarchy. So there I am, extraction vehicle disabled, asset injured, and opposition closing in from 3 directions, Mercer was saying, gesturing to illustrate the scenario. Station chief radios over. Quicksilver, mission abort, immediate extraction. So I key back and tell him, negative, control. We didn't come this far to leave empty-handed. The gathered operatives nodded appreciatively. Sofia recognized most of the faces. Wilson, Reynolds, and half a dozen field agents selected for the primary extraction teams. The inner circle, the ones who mattered. She moved toward the intelligence terminal, hoping to remain unnoticed. But Mercer's voice followed her across the room. Hey, Navarro, he called, not unkindly but with the casual dismissiveness of someone addressing a subordinate. Getting set for your comms duty tomorrow? The conversation around him quieted. Sofia turned slowly, her expression professionally neutral. Every eye in the room was now focused on her. Some curious, others uncomfortable, a few openly amused. Just reviewing the mission parameters, she replied evenly. Same as everyone else. Right, Mercer nodded, that same confident smile spreading across his face, though his eyes remained calculating. Though I guess your parameters are a little different than ours. What's your code name again? Backtrack? Monitor? More laughter, louder this time. Captain Wilson, a normally reasonable colleague, looked uncomfortable but didn't intervene. The junior operatives exchanged glances. They were too professional to join in openly, but they weren't going to defend her either. My code name is Phantom, Sofia said quietly. Phantom, Mercer repeated, as if testing the word. Yeah, that fits. Phantom as in invisible, behind the scenes, never quite in the action. He paused for effect. Of course, tomorrow's operation is all about direct engagement, split-second decisions. Can't afford to have anyone overthinking the situation. The implication hung in the air like smoke. Sofia felt heat rise in her cheeks, but her voice remained level. Speed without precision is just chaos. Precision without speed is just... Well, Mercer shrugged. It's why you're running technical support tomorrow instead of field ops. The room went completely silent. Sofia could hear the hum of the air handling system, the distant sound of a helicopter on the landing pad, her own measured breathing. Everyone was watching, waiting to see how she'd respond to having her professional capabilities questioned in front of the entire operations team. She could have walked away. Should have, probably. Instead, she stepped closer to Mercer's planning table. You know what's interesting about technical support positions, she said conversationally. They only matter when the field operatives miss something critical. Mercer's smile faltered slightly. Field team isn't going to miss anything, Navarro. That's why they call us primary. Right, Sofia nodded. Because nothing ever goes wrong in intelligence operations. She let that sink in for a moment. Good luck tomorrow, James. Hope you never need that technical support. She turned and walked out, leaving the intelligence terminal untouched. Behind her, she heard the conversation restart in hushed tones, but the easy camaraderie was gone. Outside, the night air had turned cold as darkness settled over the compound. Sofia walked across the empty courtyard toward her quarters, but her path took her past the communications center where tomorrow's mission would be coordinated. Her workstation sat at the far end of the room, as isolated as she felt, but as she approached it, she noticed something that made her stop. Chief Communications Officer Elena Reyes, the division's most experienced communications specialist, was running diagnostics on Sofia's assigned systems. Elena had 30 years in the agency and a reputation for knowing these networks better than the engineers who designed them. "Evening, Lieutenant," she said without looking up. "Just wanted to check your emergency protocol configurations one more time." "Problems?" Sofia asked. Elena straightened, setting aside her diagnostic tablet. "No, Lieutenant. Opposite, actually. This station's configured perfectly. Most comprehensive emergency protocol setup I've seen in years." She paused, studying Sofia's face in the dim light of the monitoring stations. "Heard about tomorrow's assignments?" Sofia said nothing, but Elena nodded as if she'd spoken anyway. "Been running these communications networks since before most of these hotshots could spell intelligence," she continued. "Seen a lot of operatives come and go. The flashy ones, the quiet ones, the ones who think they're irreplaceable." She gestured toward Sofia's workstation. "But when everything falls apart, when agents are compromised and extraction plans collapse, you know who I want monitoring those communications?" "Who?" Sofia asked quietly. Elena looked her straight in the eye. "The operative who builds redundancies into every system. The one who memorizes every agent's personal emergency codes. The one who practices signal restoration until she can do it blindfolded." She tapped the side of the monitoring station. "The one who treats every mission like lives depend on it. Because they do." Sofia felt something loosen in her chest, a tension she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. "Tomorrow's field conditions are looking problematic," Elena continued, pulling up a secure intelligence feed. "Opposition forces have increased security rotations in 2 of our extraction zones. We're seeing surveillance pattern changes that weren't in the initial briefing. Quote, technical support you are not authorized to. Sir, with respect, those agents are going to be captured if someone doesn't create secure extraction routes in the next 10 minutes. I have the capability. I'm in position. And I have a functional breach protocol that can overcome the adaptive security measures." There was a long pause. Sofia could imagine the frantic discussions taking place in the command center, weighing political considerations against the lives of 8 embedded agents facing imminent capture. Finally, Hayes' voice came through. "Technical support, you are cleared to implement Lazarus Protocol. God help us all." Sofia's fingers flew across her keyboard, initiating the specialized breach protocols she'd developed but never had the opportunity to deploy. Behind her, the mission that was supposed to showcase the agency's extraction capabilities had collapsed into chaos. Ahead of her lay the most challenging security system she'd ever attempted to breach. But she was ready. She'd been ready all along. "All assets. This is technical support," she transmitted, her voice steady and professional. "Stand by for new extraction corridors. We're bringing you home." The first security breach appeared on her screen like a digital aurora, her custom infiltration algorithms carving pathways through the opposition's defenses. The security system was fighting back with everything it had, adaptive countermeasures deploying against her intrusion attempts. But Sofia had anticipated this, had built her protocols specifically to counter these advanced defensive systems. "Technical support to Asset Epsilon," she transmitted through a newly secured channel. "Security Gateway 7 has been breached. Proceed to Extraction Point Delta using provided route. You have a 4-minute window." "Copy. Technical support," came the strained reply. "Moving now." Through her monitoring system, Sofia could hear the skepticism from the command center. Someone she couldn't identify muttered, 4 minutes? That's not enough time for a clean extraction." But Sofia knew something the command team didn't. In conditions like these, trying to create permanent breaches was impossible. The security systems were too adaptive, too intelligent. The key was to create multiple temporary openings, precisely timed and sequenced, to move assets through a choreographed series of security gaps before the system could respond. "Asset Gamma, prepare for breach at northeastern access point," she instructed, fingers continuing their relentless dance across her keyboard. 3-minute window opening in 20 seconds. Move exactly as instructed. The breach sequence required millisecond timing, perfectly synchronized movements between multiple systems. This was where years of experience made the difference. Sofia could anticipate the security system's responses, could feel its adaptive patterns through the data streams, predicting its next defensive move before it deployed. Contact established with Asset Gamma, reported the extraction team that had taken over from Mercer's failed attempt, moving to secondary extraction point. The first successful extraction took 9 minutes instead of the normal 3, but Sofia never wavered. She held the security breaches open through countermeasure after countermeasure, making constant micro-adjustments to her infiltration algorithms to keep the digital pathways clear. Asset Gamma secured, proceeding to extraction vehicle. Asset Epsilon extraction complete. But there was no time for celebration. 6 more agents remained in hostile territory, their positions growing more precarious by the minute. Asset Omega, you're next. Approach from access point 3. Same protocol. The second extraction was even more challenging. The security system had begun to recognize patterns in her breach attempts, deploying predictive countermeasures to seal vulnerabilities before she could exploit them. Sofia watched her fellow technical specialists struggle with conditions that would have broken lesser operatives, their expertise pushed to the limit by a defensive system unlike anything they'd encountered before. "Command, this is technical support," she transmitted during a brief lull. 4 assets secured, 4 remaining. Request priority clearance for final extraction sequence. Roger. Technical support. Priority granted. How are your systems holding up? Sofia glanced at her infiltration algorithms. She was pushing them beyond their design parameters, adapting them on the fly as the security systems evolved. But she had enough processing power to complete the mission. "I'm good, Command. Let's finish this." The third asset approached with opposition forces actively searching the area, making the digital breach only half the challenge. Physical security teams were sweeping through the extraction zone, forcing Sofia to coordinate both digital and physical evasion patterns simultaneously. "Asset Beta, security patrols converging on your position," Sofia transmitted. "I need you to trust me completely. I'm going to do something that's not in the protocol, but it's going to work." Instead of the standard approach, Sofia created a false security alert 3 blocks from the asset's position, using the opposition's own systems against them. The technique was something she'd developed during an operation in Karelia, not officially approved, but highly effective when standard protocols failed. "Contact established with Asset Beta," reported the extraction team. "Moving to secure vehicle now." In the command center, Sofia could hear excited chatter as operations staff realized what she had accomplished. Someone said, "Did she just compromise their entire security response protocol?" The 4th and 5th assets were extracted in rapid succession using variations of the same technique. The 6th asset, however, was in the worst position, physically surrounded by security forces with no clear extraction route. "Asset Alpha, hold position," Sofia instructed, her voice calm despite the mounting pressure. "We're going to create a diversion that will clear your sector." The final asset, a deep cover operative who had been embedded for over 2 years, responded with barely controlled tension. "Technical support, I'm completely surrounded." "Extraction is impossible." "Nothing's impossible," Sofia replied firmly. "Trust your training and trust me. I'm going to bring you home." She deployed her most sophisticated breach protocol, not just creating openings in the security systems but temporarily reconfiguring them to her advantage. By the time the opposition realized their own security measures were creating a path for the asset's escape, it would be too late. When the final extraction was confirmed, there was an audible sigh of relief throughout the communications center. "All assets secured and en route to safe zones," Sofia announced, her voice betraying no hint of the exhaustion she felt after 3 hours of the most intense technical work of her career. "Operation complete." "Technical support, this is Asset Alpha," came a voice, calm, professional, and filled with genuine respect. "I don't know who you are, but every one of us owes you our lives today." Quote, as Sofia began the systematic removal of all traces of her infiltration, she could hear the chatter on the tactical frequency changing. Word was spreading through the entire operation about what had just happened, about the technical support specialist who had salvaged a mission that everyone else had given up for lost. But for Sofia, there was no sense of triumph, no desire for recognition. She'd simply done what needed to be done, exactly when it needed to be done. It was what she'd been preparing for her entire career. The debriefing room at Westridge Intelligence Center was packed with personnel as Sofia approached the entrance. Word of what had happened during Operation Shadowfall had spread through the agency like wildfire, and it seemed like half the division had turned out for the emergency review session. Sofia could see the crowd through the glass walls as she approached, but her focus remained on the task at hand. The operation had succeeded, but the method she'd employed had bypassed standard protocols, violated chain of command, and utilized unauthorized breach techniques. In intelligence work, even successful improvisation often came with consequences. She entered the room with the same quiet composure she brought to every aspect of her work, taking a seat at the far end of the conference table. Director Hayes was already present, along with Deputy Director Chen and several senior staff members Sofia didn't recognize, likely representatives from agency headquarters. As the room filled with operation team members, Sofia noticed that someone had arranged the seating to place her directly across from Captain Mercer. An impromptu confrontation between the technical specialist who had salvaged the operation and the field operative whose team had failed their primary objective. Director Hayes called the meeting to order, his expression more complex than Sofia had ever seen it, a mixture of relief, concern, and something that might have been respect. "Before we begin the formal debrief," he said, "I want to acknowledge what happened today. Operation Shadowfall should have been a textbook demonstration of our extraction capabilities. Instead, it nearly became a catastrophic failure that would have resulted in the capture of 8 high-value assets." The room fell silent as Hayes continued. "The only reason we're not conducting a disaster review right now is because Lieutenant Sofia Navarro recognized the threat, developed a solution, and implemented it with extraordinary skill." Hayes turned to face Sofia directly. "Lieutenant, your actions today saved 8 lives and preserved years of intelligence gathering. The agency owes you a debt of gratitude." Sofia remained composed, but she could feel the weight of every eye in the room. "Sir, no special recognition is necessary. We all did our jobs today." "No," Hayes said firmly, loud enough for everyone to hear, "you did your job. The rest of us nearly got good people captured because we confused confidence with competence." He turned to address the gathered operations staff. What Lieutenant Navarro accomplished today wasn't just exceptional technical work. It was exceptional leadership. She saw what needed to be done and did it, regardless of her assigned role. One of the embedded agents who had been extracted, Senior Operative Thomas Reeves, Asset Alpha in the field, pushed through the crowd. He was still wearing the civilian clothes from his cover identity, having come directly from medical clearance. "Lieutenant Navarro," Reeves said, extending his hand, "I wanted to thank you personally. What you did today—" He paused, emotion making his voice unsteady. "I have a family waiting for me at home. They get to see me tonight because of your skill and courage." Similar testimonials followed from other extracted agents. Each story drove home the same point. Sofia's actions hadn't just saved a mission, they'd saved lives. Staff Sergeant Rivera, one of the communications specialists who had witnessed Sofia's work firsthand, was surrounded by his own group of admirers. "I've been doing this job for 14 years, he was telling anyone who would listen. "I've never seen anything like what Lieutenant Navarro did today. She was breaching security systems that our best teams couldn't touch, making it look routine." But not everyone was celebrating. Sofia noticed a small group of senior officials standing apart from the main crowd, their expressions troubled. She recognized them as part of the agency's leadership team, people who had to explain to their superiors how a routine extraction had nearly turned into a catastrophic intelligence failure. Deputy Director Chen approached Sofia with a tablet and a serious expression. "Lieutenant, I need to ask you some questions about today's operation," Chen said. "There's going to be a formal inquiry into what went wrong with the primary teams." Sofia nodded. She'd expected this. "Of course, ma'am. When do you need my statement?" "Now, if possible. Director Hayes wants a preliminary report immediately." As they walked toward a private conference room, Chen continued, "I have to ask, did you observe any specific training deficiencies or procedural violations that contributed to today's problems?" It was a loaded question. Sofia's answer could determine the fate of several careers, including Captain Mercer's. She could point out that the primary teams had been unprepared for the advanced security protocols they faced, that the mission should have been delayed or reassigned, that political considerations had been prioritized over operational readiness. Instead, she said, "Ma'am, the security measures today exceeded anything we'd encountered previously. Every operative performed to the best of their abilities under extremely challenging circumstances." Chen looked surprised, "But surely you observed some factors that led to the mission's near failure." I didn't observe a mission failure, Sofia replied calmly. I observed a mission that required adaptation. The primary teams encountered challenges beyond their training and experience. When that happened, the system worked as designed. Alternative approaches were implemented to complete the objective. It was a diplomatic answer that protected her fellow operatives, while acknowledging the reality of what had happened. Chen made notes on her tablet, but Sofia could see she was still troubled. Captain, off the record, do you think today's team assignments were appropriate? Sofia stopped walking and looked directly at Chen. Ma'am, I think every operative in this division is committed to completing the mission and bringing everyone home safely. Sometimes that means acknowledging that experience and specialized knowledge matter more than conventional assignment protocols. The implication was clear without being insubordinate. Chen nodded slowly. One more question. Would you be willing to take on additional responsibilities? Training duties, perhaps, or a role in developing new breach protocols for advanced security systems. Sofia considered the offer. It was recognition of her expertise, a chance to ensure that future teams would be better prepared for the kind of challenges they'd faced today. But it also meant stepping out of the shadows, accepting a visibility that she'd never sought. Yes, ma'am, she said finally, if it helps prevent what happened today from happening again. As they reached the conference room, Sofia could see through the windows that the celebration outside was continuing. Her fellow operatives were still processing what had happened, still trying to understand how the quiet technical specialist they'd overlooked had become the hero of the day. But Sofia understood something they didn't yet grasp. Today hadn't been about heroics or recognition. It had been about preparation meeting opportunity, about years of quiet professionalism paying off when it mattered most. She'd been ready when others weren't, and that had made all the difference. The inquiry began 2 days later in a secure conference room on the top floor of agency headquarters. Sofia sat at a polished mahogany table across from a panel of 3 senior officials: Assistant Director Margaret Donovan from Central Intelligence, Colonel James Westfield from Military Intelligence, and Director Hayes, who looked like he hadn't slept since the operation. Assistant Director Donovan, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and decorations from 3 different intelligence services, opened the questioning. Lieutenant Navarro, we've reviewed the operation logs and interviewed all personnel involved. Your actions during Operation Shadowfall were extraordinary, but we need to understand how the primary mission plan failed so catastrophically. Sofia had spent the past 2 days reviewing every detail of the operation, preparing for exactly this moment. She knew that careers hung in the balance, not just her own, but those of operatives who had trained alongside her for years. Ma'am, I believe the primary issue was a mismatch between training protocols and actual field conditions, Sofia began carefully. Our teams were prepared for standard extraction operations, but the security systems they encountered had been upgraded beyond all intelligence predictions. Colonel Westfield leaned forward, consulting his notes. Lieutenant, our records show you requested a reassessment of team assignments based on updated intelligence. Can you elaborate on that conversation? This was dangerous territory. Sofia's answer could implicate Director Hayes in poor decision-making or reveal the political pressures that had driven the mission forward despite operational concerns. Sir, I expressed concern about the advanced security protocols and suggested that team assignments should factor in specialized experience with similar systems. Director Hayes appropriately considered all factors, including the strategic importance of the mission. Assistant Director Donovan's expression suggested she wasn't accepting the diplomatic answer. Lieutenant, we have reports that you specifically warned about the capabilities of the primary teams. Is that accurate? Sofia took a measured breath. The truth was complicated, but these officials deserved to hear it. Ma'am, I suggested that experience with advanced breach protocols should be a factor in team selection. Several of our operatives, including myself, had extensive experience with similar security systems. Others had primarily simulation experience. And how did Director Hayes respond to that suggestion? He maintained the original team assignments and reminded me that Captain Mercer and his team were fully qualified for the mission. Colonel Westfield made a note, which technically they were. Yes, sir, all primary teams met the regulatory requirements for the operation. But, Donovan prompted, recognizing the unspoken qualification. But there's a difference between being qualified on paper and being prepared for field conditions that exceed all training parameters. The questioning continued for 3 hours, covering every aspect of the mission from initial planning to final extraction. Sofia answered truthfully but carefully, protecting her fellow operatives while ensuring the investigators understood the systemic issues that had led to the near disaster. Finally, Assistant Director Donovan asked the question Sofia had been dreading. "Lieutenant, in your professional opinion, was this mission properly planned and executed?" Sofia looked around the table, meeting each official's eyes in turn. These were people who understood intelligence work, who knew the difference between political necessity and operational reality. "Ma'am, the mission was planned according to existing protocols and executed by dedicated professionals doing their best under extremely challenging conditions. However, I believe we can learn from what happened to improve future operations." "Such as?" Donovan prompted. "Team selection should weight specialized experience more heavily when facing advanced security systems. Intelligence assessment protocols need to be more aggressive in predicting system upgrades. And breach protocols should be regularly field-tested, not just simulated in controlled environments." Assistant Director Donovan nodded slowly. "Lieutenant, one final question. If you were planning this mission again, what would you do differently?" Sofia had considered this question during 2 sleepless nights. The honest answer might end careers, but anything less would dishonor the agents who had trusted their lives to the operation. "Ma'am, I would delay the mission until we had updated infiltration protocols, regardless of political considerations. No intelligence objective is worth losing 8 embedded agents." The room fell silent. Director Hayes' face was pale, but he nodded slightly, an acknowledgement that she was right, even if it reflected poorly on his decision-making. "Thank you, Lieutenant," Assistant Director Donovan said finally. "Your honesty is noted and appreciated. You're dismissed." As Sofia stood to leave, Colonel Westfield spoke up. "Lieutenant, off the record, how do you think this incident should be handled?" Sofia paused at the door. "Sir, I think we should focus on learning from what happened, rather than assigning blame. Every operative involved was trying to complete the mission successfully. The system failed them, not the other way around." Outside the conference room, Sofia found Captain Mercer waiting in the hallway. He looked like he'd aged 5 years in 3 days, his usual confidence replaced by genuine humility. "Navarro," he said quietly, "I wanted to thank you for what you said in there. And for," he gestured vaguely, "for saving our operation. James, you would have done the same if you'd had the training." He shook his head. "No, I wouldn't have. I wasn't prepared for security systems like that. Hell, I'm not sure I would have recognized the warning signs, even if they'd been obvious." He paused. "I heard they're offering you the Advanced Breach Protocol Instructor position. You should take it." "Why?" "Because you understand something the rest of us are still learning. That being the best operative isn't about being the most visible or the most politically connected. It's about being prepared when everyone else isn't." Quote. As Mercer walked away, Sofia realized that the inquiry had accomplished something more important than determining blame. It had forced everyone involved to confront the difference between appearance and substance, between confidence and competence. The mission had been saved not through political maneuvering or procedural compliance, but through old-fashioned preparation and specialized knowledge. And maybe, just maybe, that lesson would stick long enough to prevent the next crisis. 6 months later, Lieutenant Sofia Navarro stood before the largest advanced breach protocol class in the agency's history. 38 operatives from 5 different allied intelligence services filled the training facility, all there to learn the specialized security breach techniques that had been developed based on her Shadowfall operation. The program had been Assistant Director Donovan's idea, a formal recognition that what Sofia had accomplished wasn't just exceptional technical work, but a new standard for how complex extraction operations should be conducted. The inquiry had resulted in sweeping changes to team selection criteria, training requirements, and breach protocol development. Sofia's quiet expertise, once overlooked, had become the foundation for an entirely new approach to intelligence operations. "The first thing you need to understand," Sofia told her students, "is that standard protocols will only get you so far. When security systems exceed your training parameters, you need to rely on instinct, specialized knowledge, and the confidence that comes from being thoroughly prepared." In the front row, junior analyst Maria Collins, fresh from the Intelligence Academy, raised her hand. "Lieutenant, how do you develop that kind of specialized knowledge if you don't have the field experience yet?" It was a good question, the kind that showed genuine understanding of the challenges ahead. You start by taking every training scenario seriously. You study security systems until you can predict their responses before your monitoring programs alert you. You practice breach protocols until they become second nature. And you never, ever assume that because something worked in simulation, it will work in the field. The class nodded, taking notes. These weren't the overconfident operatives who had dismissed her expertise a year ago. Word of the Shadowfall operation had spread throughout the intelligence community, and her reputation now drew serious students who wanted to learn from someone who had proven herself under the most challenging conditions. After the session, Sofia walked across the facility courtyard toward her new office in the training division. The communications system she'd used during the Shadowfall operation had been preserved in its original configuration, now designated as the primary training platform for the Advanced Breach Protocol program. Someone had added a small brass plaque near the main terminal. Preparation meets opportunity. Director Hayes intercepted her near the operations building. He'd survived the inquiry, barely, and had thrown himself into implementing the reforms recommended by the review committee. "Sofia," he said, using her first name for the first time since she'd known him, "I wanted to tell you personally, the agency has approved your promotion to captain." "Congratulations." Sofia felt a moment of satisfaction, but it was tempered by the memory of all the people who had doubted her capabilities just because she didn't fit their image of what a field operative should look like. "Thank you, sir. I appreciate the recognition." "It's not recognition," Hayes said seriously. "It's acknowledgement of what you've always been. One of the finest intelligence operatives I've ever worked with. I just wish it had taken me less time to see it." As Hayes walked away, Sofia thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. She'd never sought the spotlight, never demanded recognition for her skills. She'd simply prepared herself to be ready when the moment came, trusting that competence would eventually speak louder than politics. Her phone buzzed with a message from Elena Reyes, now serving as her senior technical advisor in the training program. Captain Navarro saw the promotion announcement. "Nobody deserves it more. Looking forward to continuing our work together." Captain Navarro. It would take some getting used to. That evening, Sofia returned to her quarters to find a package waiting outside her door. Inside was a custom-designed secure tablet with her name engraved on the case. The accompanying note was signed by all 8 assets from the Shadowfall operation. "Captain Navarro, this secure communications device is for recording all the future operations you'll save through your teaching and leadership. What you did for us was more than exceptional technical work. It was a lesson in what it means to be a true intelligence professional. Thank you for showing us that quiet competence beats loud confidence every time." Sofia sat in her small living room, holding the tablet and thinking about the strange path her career had taken. A year ago, she'd been the forgotten specialist relegated to technical support. Now she was responsible for training the next generation of intelligence operatives with the authority to ensure they'd be prepared for whatever challenges they might face. Her phone rang. Her brother calling from Colorado. "Hey, I heard about your promotion," her brother said. "Mom and Dad are so proud, though they still don't really understand what you do for a living." Sofia laughed. "I protect people and teach others to do the same." "Is that all? From what I've been hearing, you're some kind of legend in your field now." "I'm just an operative who was prepared when preparation mattered." After the call ended, Sofia stepped onto her small balcony. The sun was setting behind the distant mountains, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. In the distance, she could hear the sound of helicopters as the evening training operations departed. Tomorrow she would teach another class of operatives about the importance of preparation, about the difference between confidence and competence, about the quiet satisfaction that comes from doing your job well regardless of whether anyone notices. Some would listen, some would learn, and maybe when their moment came, they would be ready. Sofia had learned something important during her journey from overlooked technical specialist to respected instructor. Recognition wasn't the point. The point was being ready to serve when duty called, regardless of the circumstances or the audience. She opened the new tablet to create her first secure entry. Day 1. Captain Sofia Navarro, Advanced Breach Protocol Instructor. Mission: prepare the next generation. Status: ready. Outside, Another helicopter thundered across the darkening sky, carrying a new team into the field. Sofia watched until its lights disappeared into the distance, then went inside to prepare for tomorrow's lessons. There was always more work to do, always another operative to train, always another mission to prepare for. And Sofia wouldn't have it any other way. In a world that often confused visibility with value and confidence with competence, she had found her place as the quiet professional who was always ready when ready mattered most, and that, she realized, was exactly where she belonged. 3 months into her new role as captain and advanced breach protocol instructor, Sofia found herself facing an unexpected challenge. The agency had received intelligence about a high-profile operation in Eastern Europe. Opposition forces had captured 3 Allied intelligence operatives during a failed extraction. The captured agents were being held in a classified detention facility, subjected to increasingly aggressive interrogation techniques. Sofia sat in the back of the emergency briefing room, listening as Director Hayes outlined the situation to a select group of senior operatives. Intelligence suggests they'll be transferred to a maximum security facility within 72 hours, Hayes explained, his expression grim. Once that happens, extraction becomes virtually impossible. The room buzzed with tension. These weren't just any operatives. They were high-value intelligence officers with access to sensitive networks across multiple Allied agencies. If they broke under interrogation, dozens of ongoing operations would be compromised, and countless embedded agents would be at risk. Our window is closing, Hayes continued. We need to locate the detention facility and extract our people before the transfer occurs. Captain James Mercer, recently promoted despite the Shadowfall incident, raised his hand. Sir, what intelligence do we have on the facility's location? Minimal, Hayes admitted. We've narrowed it down to 3 possible sites, all heavily fortified and operating under communications blackout protocols. Sofia listened carefully, her analytical mind already processing the challenge. Detention facilities under blackout protocols would be nearly impossible to locate through conventional means. No electronic signatures, no communications to intercept, no digital footprint to track. Captain Navarro, Hayes suddenly called out, causing heads to turn toward Sofia. You've developed some unconventional location techniques during your training program. Any thoughts on how we might identify which facility is holding our people? Sofia hadn't expected to be called upon. Since her promotion, she'd focused on training, not field operations. But the problem was exactly the kind of challenge her specialized protocols were designed to address. Sir, conventional location methods won't work against blackout protocols, she began, rising from her seat. But every facility, no matter how isolated, has weaknesses in its isolation. She moved to the front of the room, where digital maps displayed the 3 potential locations. Even facilities under complete communications blackout need basic utilities: power, water, waste management. Those systems create patterns we can detect if we know what to look for. Such as, Hayes prompted. Power consumption anomalies, sir. A detention facility housing 3 additional prisoners would show subtle but detectable increases in electricity usage. Water consumption patterns would shift. And most importantly, security protocols would intensify. Sofia pointed to the digital display. If we deploy passive monitoring systems around all 3 locations, focusing on utility infrastructure rather than communications, we can identify which facility shows the signature patterns of a high-security detention operation. Hayes nodded slowly. How quickly could you implement this approach? 24 hours to deploy the monitoring systems, another 12 to gather and analyze the data. The room had fallen silent, all eyes on Sofia. This wasn't the technical support specialist they had once overlooked. This was a confident intelligence professional proposing a solution no one else had considered. Make it happen, Hayes ordered. Work with whatever resources and personnel you need. As the meeting adjourned, Sofia found herself surrounded by senior operatives offering assistance. The same people who had once dismissed her were now deferring to her expertise. The irony wasn't lost on her, but she had no time for satisfaction. 3 lives depended on her ability to deliver results. Captain Mercer, she called out as the crowd dispersed, I could use your help with the deployment teams. Mercer looked surprised but nodded immediately. Whatever you need, Navarro. Sofia spent the next 12 hours designing specialized monitoring systems capable of detecting the subtle patterns that would identify the detention facility. Elena Reyes joined her, bringing her extensive experience with surveillance technologies. These need to be completely passive, Sofia explained as they finalized the designs. If the opposition detects active scanning, they'll accelerate the prisoner transfer. Elena nodded, understanding immediately. No active signals, no traceable power sources. We'll make them invisible. By midnight, 3 deployment teams were ready, each equipped with Sofia's custom monitoring systems. Mercer would lead the northern team, while experienced field operatives would handle the other locations. Remember, Sofia instructed during the final briefing, these aren't standard surveillance deployments. You're not looking for communications or movement. You're establishing a baseline for power consumption, security patrol patterns, and facility operations. The data might seem meaningless individually, but together it will create a signature we can identify. The teams departed at 02:00 hours, moving under cover of darkness toward the 3 potential detention sites. Sofia returned to the Operations Center, where she'd established a specialized analysis station. For the next 24 hours, she would need to process massive amounts of seemingly unrelated data to find the patterns that would lead them to the captured operatives. As dawn broke, Sofia sat surrounded by monitoring screens, her eyes burning from hours of intense focus. The first data streams were coming in from the deployment teams, raw and unfiltered. To most observers, it would look like meaningless noise. Minor fluctuations in power grids, subtle variations in security patrol timing, minuscule changes in thermal signatures. But Sofia saw patterns where others saw chaos. Each facility had its own operational rhythm, its own unique signature. The challenge was identifying which signature contained the anomalies that would indicate the presence of high-value prisoners. "How's it going?" Director Hayes asked, appearing at her workstation with 2 cups of coffee. Sofia accepted the coffee gratefully. The northern and eastern facilities show consistent operational patterns. Nothing unusual in their security protocols or resource utilization. And the southern facility? "That's where it gets interesting," Sofia replied, pulling up a series of data visualizations. "They're running a standard pattern, but there are micro-anomalies in their power consumption. Every 4 hours, there's a 3% spike that lasts exactly 17 minutes. What does that tell you? By itself, not much. But when you correlate it with their water usage patterns..." Sofia pulled up another visualization. "They're using 30% more water than a facility of that size should require. And the usage increases precisely 2 minutes after each power spike." Hayes studied the data. "Could be anything. Shift changes, equipment maintenance." "Interrogation sessions," Sofia said quietly. "The power spikes correspond to security protocol escalations, more personnel, additional systems activated. The water usage patterns match known protocols for interrogation recovery. They're questioning our people on a 4-hour rotation, then cleaning them up afterward." Hayes' expression darkened. "You're certain?" "Not completely," Sofia admitted. "But there's one more indicator." She pulled up a third visualization. "The facility's waste management system is processing higher than normal biological waste, consistent with 3 additional occupants under physical stress." Hayes was silent for a long moment, processing the implications. "That's it then. The southern facility." He turned to leave, already reaching for his secure phone to mobilize the extraction team. "Director," Sofia called after him, "there's something else you should know." Hayes paused. "The interrogation intervals are getting shorter. They started at 6 hours, then 5, now 4. They're accelerating, which means..." "Our people are beginning to break," Hayes finished grimly. "How long do you think they have?" Sofia studied the patterns once more. At this rate of acceleration, 24 hours at most before they start giving up critical intelligence. "Then we move tonight. I want a full tactical briefing in 3 hours." Sofia nodded, returning to her analysis. The extraction would be extraordinarily difficult. The southern facility was the most heavily fortified of the 3, with multiple security layers and a complex physical layout. The extraction team would need detailed intelligence on guard rotations, access points, and internal security measures, information that was nearly impossible to obtain from passive monitoring alone. Unless... A thought occurred to her, a dangerous but potentially effective approach. She reached for her secure phone. "Captain Mercer? I need your team. to adjust their monitoring focus. I think I found a way to map the facility's internal security protocols, but I'll need specialized data that only your team can collect. Quote. 3 hours later, Sofia stood before the assembled extraction team, presenting the most comprehensive intelligence package anyone had seen for a blackout facility. Using the specialized data from Mercer's team, she had constructed a detailed model of the southern facility's security systems, guard rotations, and, most importantly, the likely location of the detention cells. The prisoners are being held here, she indicated on the digital model, based on power distribution and thermal signatures. This section operates independently from the main facility systems. It has its own backup generators, water supply, and security protocols. The extraction team leader, Major David Foster, studied the model with professional appreciation. This is impressive work, Captain. How reliable is this intelligence? 87% confidence on the facility layout, 92% on security patrol patterns, 78% on the precise location of the prisoners. Those are better odds than we usually get, Foster remarked. What about internal security measures? Electronic locks? Biometric access? Sofia pulled up another visualization. That's where it gets complicated. The detention wing uses a proprietary security system that operates on a closed network. No external connections, no remote access points. You'll need to breach it physically once you're inside. Foster frowned. That significantly increases the risk factor. My team specializes in extraction, not electronic security breaches. A heavy silence fell over the room. Without the ability to breach the internal security system, the extraction team could reach the facility but not the prisoners. I should go with you, Sofia said quietly. All eyes turned to her in surprise. You? Foster asked incredulously. No offense, Captain, but this is a tactical extraction operation, not a training exercise. I'm aware of that, Major. I'm also the only person who can breach that security system in the time window we have available. Director Hayes, who had been listening silently, stepped forward. Captain Navarro is a technical specialist, not a field operative. Major Foster. With respect, sir, I completed full field qualification before specializing in technical operations, Sofia countered. And more importantly, that security system is a modified version of one I've encountered before. I can breach it. No one else here can. The room erupted in debate. Foster arguing that adding a non-tactical specialist to his team created an unacceptable liability. Others pointing out that without the security breach, the entire mission was futile. Hayes raised his hand for silence. Captain Navarro, are you absolutely certain you can breach this system? Yes, sir, 100%. And you understand the risks of field deployment? This isn't a monitoring operation or a training scenario. If you're captured, I understand the risks, sir, and I accept them. Hayes studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Major Foster, Captain Navarro will accompany your team as a technical specialist. You will provide her with full tactical protection until she completes the security breach. After that, she returns immediately to the extraction vehicle while your team secures the prisoners. Is that clear? Foster didn't look happy, but he nodded. Yes, sir. Crystal clear. The briefing continued, with Foster outlining the tactical approach and extraction plan. Sofia listened carefully, mentally preparing herself for what would be her first field operation since the promotion. She hadn't expected to return to the field so soon or under such high-stakes circumstances, but she was ready. As the meeting concluded, Captain Mercer approached her. You sure about this, Navarro? Field ops aren't like sitting behind a monitoring station. I know the difference, Mercer. Just checking. For what it's worth, I think Hayes made the right call. Nobody understands those security systems like you do. He hesitated, then added, Be careful out there. Those opposition interrogators, they're not known for their gentle touch if they catch you. Sofia nodded, appreciating the concern despite their complicated history. I'll be fine. Your team provided excellent monitoring data. We know what we're facing. But as she walked away to prepare for the mission, Sofia knew that no amount of data could fully prepare them for what lay ahead. Field operations were inherently unpredictable, and this one carried exceptional risks. If they failed, 3 Allied operatives would break under interrogation, compromising countless agents and operations. And if she were captured herself? Sofia pushed the thought aside. She couldn't afford doubt or fear. Not now. Not when so much depended on her ability to perform under pressure. The extraction team departed at 2,100 hours, two sleek, unmarked helicopters vanishing into the night sky. Sofia sat among Major Foster's tactical team, dressed in the same dark combat gear, her specialized equipment secured in a reinforced case beside her. Foster's team consisted of 8 elite operatives, each a specialist in tactical extraction operations. They had worked together for years, their movements and communications honed to near-perfect efficiency. Sofia was the outsider, the technical specialist who had insisted on joining a high-risk field operation. 20 minutes to insertion point, the pilot announced over the tactical frequency. Foster turned to his team. Final equipment check. We're going in dark and quiet. No communications until we reach the primary target. The team performed their checks with practiced precision. Sofia checked her own equipment one last time, ensuring everything was secure and accessible. Foster moved to sit across from her. Once we're inside, you stay between Reynolds and Diaz at all times. They're responsible for your protection. You focus exclusively on the security breach. Nothing else. Is that clear? Perfectly clear, Major. Good, because I've got 3 operatives to extract and 8 team members to bring home safely. I don't need complications. Sofia met his gaze steadily. I won't be a complication, Major. I'll be the solution to your biggest problem. Foster held her gaze for a moment, then nodded curtly. Just be as good as you think you are, Captain. The helicopters touched down 3 kilometers from the detention facility, in a densely wooded area that provided natural cover. The teams disembarked swiftly, moving with silent efficiency into predetermined formations. Sofia found herself positioned between Reynolds and Diaz as planned, moving through the forest with careful precision. Her field training returned quickly, muscle memory taking over as they navigated the difficult terrain in near-total darkness. The facility came into view after 40 minutes of careful approach, a low concrete structure surrounded by a perimeter fence and guard towers. From the outside, it looked unassuming, almost administrative. Only the multiple security layers and armed patrols revealed its true purpose. Foster signaled for the team to hold position while their tactical specialists assessed the perimeter security. Sofia used the pause to study the facility's external features, confirming that her intelligence analysis had been accurate. The southern section, slightly separated from the main building, matched the power and thermal signatures she had identified as the detention wing. Perimeter breach point identified, came the whispered update from the tactical lead. Guard rotation in 60 seconds, 20-second window. Foster signaled acknowledgement, then turned to Sofia. Stay close. Move exactly as we move, not a sound. She nodded, focusing her mind on the task ahead. The perimeter breach was just the beginning. The real challenge would come when they reached the internal security systems protecting the detention cells. The team moved with extraordinary precision, timing their approach to coincide with the guard rotation. The perimeter fence was breached silently, specialized equipment creating an opening without triggering the security systems. One by one, they slipped through, Sofia moving exactly as instructed between her 2 designated protectors. Inside the perimeter, the team split into 2 units. The primary unit, including Sofia, would proceed to the detention wing. The secondary unit would secure their escape route and provide distraction if needed. Moving from shadow to shadow, the primary unit approached the southern section of the facility. Sofia noted with satisfaction that the external access point was exactly where her analysis had predicted, a maintenance entrance with lower security than the main access points. The tactical specialists made quick work of the exterior door, bypassing its relatively simple security system without triggering any alarms. Once inside, they found themselves in a utility corridor, dimly lit and eerily silent. Foster signaled for the team to hold position, then turned to Sofia. This is where you take point, Captain. Where to? Sofia consulted her mental map of the facility. 2 levels down, southeast quadrant. That's where the security core is located. And the prisoners? Adjacent section, same level. But we can't reach them without first disabling the security system. Foster nodded. Lead on. Reynolds, Diaz, stay on her. Sofia moved forward, leading the team through the utility corridor toward a service stairwell she had identified during her analysis. The facility was quieter than she had expected, with minimal personnel visible, exactly as her monitoring data had suggested. During night shifts, the facility operated with a skeleton crew, most of them concentrated in the central security hub. They descended 2 levels without incident, emerging into another corridor. This one more clearly part of a security installation, with reinforced doors and surveillance systems visible at regular intervals. Sofia raised her hand, signaling the team to stop. Active surveillance ahead. We need to bypass it before proceeding. She opened her equipment case, retrieving a specialized device of her own design. The surveillance systems in facilities like this operated on predictable protocols, cycling through cameras in a set pattern. With the right timing and the right technology, they could be looped for short periods without triggering alerts. "I need 60 seconds, she whispered to Foster. "Then we'll have a 3-minute window to reach the security core." Foster nodded, positioning his team to provide coverage while Sofia worked. Her fingers moved with precise efficiency, connecting her device to an access panel and initiating the specialized bypass sequence she had developed for exactly this type of system. 30 seconds, she murmured, watching the diagnostic indicators on her device. The system was resisting more than expected, its security protocol slightly different from her analysis. She adjusted her approach, recalibrating the bypass parameters in real time. 55 seconds, Reynolds whispered tensely. Almost. Sofia made a final adjustment, and the indicator light on her device flashed green. "Got it! We have our window! Move now!" The team moved swiftly down the corridor, passing beneath surveillance cameras that continued to operate but were now showing looped footage rather than their actual movements. Sofia led them directly to an unmarked door at the end of the corridor, the access point to the security core. "This is it," she whispered. "Once we're inside, I'll need 3 minutes to disable the detention cell security. After that, you'll have full access to the prisoner section." Foster nodded. "Do it." The door to the security core was protected by a biometric lock, fingerprint scanner, and retinal recognition. Sophisticated, but not impenetrable. Sofia retrieved another device from her case, this one designed specifically for biometric security bypass. 2 minutes, she told Foster as she attached the device to the scanner. The seconds ticked by with excruciating slowness. Every moment they remained in the corridor increased their risk of discovery. Sofia could feel the tension radiating from Foster's team, their hyper-awareness of their vulnerable position. The biometric bypass completed with a soft click as the lock disengaged. Sofia opened the door carefully, revealing a small room filled with server racks and control terminals, the heart of the facility's security system. "Clear," whispered the team member who entered first, confirming the room was unoccupied. Sofia moved directly to the main control terminal, connecting her specialized equipment to its access ports. This was the moment everything depended on, her ability to breach a sophisticated security system under extreme pressure. "How long?" Foster asked, positioning his team to secure the room. 4 minutes, Sofia replied, her fingers already flying across her equipment. "Maybe 5. "We don't have 5, Foster said tersely. "Secondary team reports increased activity at the main entrance. Something's got them stirred up." Sofia didn't respond, her entire focus on the security breach. The system was similar to one she had studied extensively, but with custom modifications that required real-time adaptation. She navigated through its defenses layer by layer, dismantling security protocols and bypassing alarm triggers with methodical precision. 2 minutes, Foster warned. "Wrap it up, Captain." "Almost there," Sofia murmured, pushing deeper into the system. She had reached the detention cell controls, but they were protected by an additional security layer she hadn't anticipated. A bead of sweat trickled down her temple as she recalibrated her approach, searching for vulnerabilities in this final layer of protection. The seconds ticked by, each one bringing them closer to discovery. "Navarro!" Foster's voice held a clear warning. And then she found it, a minute flaw in the security implementation, a single point where the custom modifications hadn't been perfectly integrated with the core system. She exploited the vulnerability with surgical precision, and the detention cell security protocols disengaged with a series of soft electronic tones. "I'm in," she announced. "Detention cell security disabled. You have full access." Foster didn't waste a moment. "Reynolds, Diaz, get the captain back to the extraction point. The rest of you, with me." "Wait," Sofia said, her eyes still on her equipment display. "Something's not right." Foster paused at the doorway. "What is it?" The prisoner signatures. There are only 2 thermal readings in the detention cells. There should be 3. Foster exchanged glances with his team. Could one be an interrogation? Not according to the facility schedule. All interrogations are suspended during night shift. Sofia worked quickly, accessing the facility's internal monitoring systems. I need to see the prisoner logs. We don't have time for this, Foster insisted. 2 out of 3 is better than none. We take what we can get and extract. But Sofia had already found what she was looking for, the prisoner transfer logs. They've already moved one of them. Prisoner designated Alpha was transferred 4 hours ago. Where? Foster demanded. Sofia scanned the logs rapidly. No destination recorded. Just an authorization code for immediate transfer signed by... She froze, staring at the name on the screen. By whom? Foster pressed. Colonel Viktor Petrov. Sofia looked up, her expression grave. He's head of opposition counter-intelligence. If he's personally authorized the transfer, then our most valuable asset is already gone, Foster concluded grimly. We extract the remaining 2 and abort. Sofia nodded, but as Foster's team moved toward the detention cells, she remained at the terminal, searching the system for any additional information. Colonel Petrov's involvement changed everything. He wouldn't have personally authorized a transfer unless the prisoner had exceptional value or had already revealed critical intelligence. As Reynolds urged her toward the exit, Sofia made a split-second decision. Instead of disconnecting her equipment, she initiated a complete data extraction, copying the entire security system database to her specialized device. What are you doing? Reynolds hissed. We need to move now. 5 more seconds, Sofia insisted, watching the progress indicator on her device. If the transferred prisoner had revealed intelligence, the interrogation records would be in this database, and those records could tell them exactly what had been compromised. The data extraction completed just as Foster's team returned with 2 figures in tow, the remaining prisoners, weak but mobile. Sofia disconnected her equipment and followed Reynolds toward the exit, her mind racing with implications. Something about this entire operation felt wrong, the pieces not quite fitting together. The extraction proceeded according to plan, the team retracing their steps through the facility with their recovered assets. Sofia moved as directed, staying between Reynolds and Diaz as they navigated back to the surface level. They had nearly reached the exterior door when the facility alarms activated, shrieking through the previously silent corridors. Move! Foster ordered, abandoning stealth for speed. Extraction point! Double time! The team burst through the exterior door, emerging into the facility grounds with alarms blaring behind them. They sprinted toward the perimeter fence, the recovered prisoners supported between team members. Sofia ran with them, her equipment case clutched tightly against her chest. Whatever had triggered the alarms, she knew it wasn't their presence in the security core. Her bypass had been perfect, leaving no trace of their intrusion, which meant something else had alerted the facility's security, something they hadn't anticipated. As they reached the perimeter fence, gunfire erupted from the guard towers. The extraction had been compromised. Foster's team moved with practiced precision, returning fire to suppress the guards while continuing their sprint toward the extraction point. Sofia stayed low, protected between Reynolds and Diaz as bullets whistled overhead. The perimeter fence loomed ahead, their passage through it now much more dangerous under direct fire. "Breach point compromised," called the point operative. "Need alternate route." Foster made a split-second decision. "East section, 50 meters! Move!" The team pivoted as one, changing direction with fluid coordination born from countless operations together. Sofia matched their pace, her field training proving its worth as she navigated the chaotic scenario. The eastern section of the perimeter fence appeared ahead, momentarily clear of direct fire as the guard towers adjusted to their change in direction. The team's breaching specialist rushed forward, equipment already in hand. 30 seconds, he called, attaching specialized cutting tools to the fence. Foster positioned his team in defensive formation, the recovered prisoners sheltered at the center. Return fire, controlled bursts only, conserve ammunition. Sofia crouched behind a concrete barrier, her mind racing as she processed what was happening. The alarm timing, the immediate response from multiple guard towers. This wasn't a random security patrol that had spotted them. The facility had been expecting them. "Captain Navarro," Foster called over the tactical frequency, "stay down and prepare to move on my mark." Quote. Sofia acknowledged, but something was nagging at her, a piece of the puzzle still missing. She pulled out her specialized device, quickly accessing the facility data she had extracted. If the security system had been primed to detect their intrusion, there would be evidence in the command logs. "Breach complete," called the specialist. "Move now." The team began filing through the fence opening, maintaining covering fire as they moved. Sofia followed Reynolds toward the breach, still scanning through the data on her device. And then she saw it. A security alert initiated 4 hours earlier, coinciding exactly with the prisoner transfer. But it wasn't a standard alert. It was a counter-extraction protocol, specifically designed to appear inactive, while monitoring for precisely the kind of security breach she had just executed. "Foster," she called urgently. "It's a trap. They knew we were coming." The major turned toward her, his expression hardening. "Explain later. Move now." Sofia pushed through the fence opening, following the team as they rushed toward the tree line. The facility spotlights swept across the open ground, searching for targets as guards poured from multiple exits. They reached the forest edge, the darkness providing welcome cover as they continued toward the extraction point. The gunfire behind them became more sporadic as distance and vegetation obscured their movement. 5 minutes to extraction point, Foster announced over the tactical frequency. "Status report." 2 recovered assets secure, reported one of the team members supporting a prisoner. "Asset Bravo injured but mobile. Asset Charlie stable." Perimeter team status: holding position at extraction point. Helicopters on standby. Opposition forces mobilizing vehicle movement on the main road. Foster acknowledged, then turned to Sofia as they continued moving through the forest. "What trap?" "The security system was specifically configured to detect our breach methods," Sofia explained between controlled breaths. "They transferred the high-value prisoner and then set up a counter-extraction protocol timed to our approach. How could they know our methods? Or our timing?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out." Sofia consulted her device again, searching through the command logs. The counter protocol was authorized by the same officer who transferred the prisoner, Colonel Petrov. Foster's expression darkened. "We can discuss intelligence failures after extraction. Right now, we focus on getting these assets to safety." They continued toward the extraction point, moving as quickly as possible while supporting the weakened prisoners. The sound of helicopters reached them, their extraction vehicles preparing for immediate departure. The extraction point came into view, a small clearing just large enough for 2 helicopters to land. The perimeter team had secured the area, their weapons trained outward as they maintained a defensive position. 30 seconds to boarding, Foster ordered. Wounded and assets first, then support team. The helicopters sat with rotors turning, pilots ready for immediate departure. Sofia followed Reynolds toward the nearest aircraft, the data device still clutched in her hand. Something still didn't make sense about the facility's response. If they had been expecting an extraction attempt, why not ambush the team inside the facility where escape would be impossible? Unless... Sofia stopped abruptly, causing Reynolds to turn in confusion. "Captain, we need to move!" "The extraction point," Sofia said, realization dawning. "Check the helicopters! Now!" Foster heard her call and turned sharply. "What are you talking about?" "If they knew about the extraction, they know about our vehicles." Sofia was already moving toward the lead helicopter, pulling a different device from her equipment case. "They could have compromised the extraction point while we were inside." Foster hesitated only briefly before barking orders. "Perimeter team, sweep the vehicles! Now!" 2 operatives rushed to the helicopters, performing rapid security checks. Sofia reached the lead aircraft first, running her detection device along the fuselage. The device emitted a soft tone as it passed beneath the pilot's compartment. Sofia's blood ran cold. "Explosive device," she shouted. "All teams clear the area." The warning came just in time. As the team scattered back toward the tree line, the first helicopter erupted in a massive fireball, the concussion wave throwing Sofia to the ground. The second helicopter ignited moments later, a secondary explosion that illuminated the entire clearing. Sofia felt strong hands dragging her into the cover of the trees, Reynolds pulling her to safety as debris rained down around them. Her ears rang from the explosion, disorienting her momentarily as she struggled to regain her bearings. Foster's voice cut through her disorientation, somehow clear despite the chaos. "Rally point Bravo! All teams, rally point, bravo, move! The extraction team regrouped quickly, their training evident in their immediate adaptation to the catastrophic development. The recovered prisoners were secured between team members as they moved deeper into the forest, away from the burning wreckage that had been their escape route. Sofia found herself beside Foster as they established a defensive position at the rally point, a predetermined location 3 kilometers from the extraction point. "Opposition forces will be all over that explosion site in minutes," Foster said grimly. "We need alternatives." "The facility vehicles," one of the team suggested. "We could commandeer transportation from the motor pool." Foster shook his head. "Too risky. They'll have everything locked down now." Sofia pulled out her communications device. "We need to contact headquarters. Request secondary extraction." "Negative," Foster replied. "All communications channels will be monitored. Any transmission now will lead opposition forces straight to us." The team fell silent, the gravity of their situation sinking in. Stranded behind enemy lines with 2 recovered assets, no extraction vehicles, and a detention facility on high alert. The mission had gone from challenging to nearly impossible. Sofia studied the faces around her elite operatives, whose confidence had been shaken by the sudden reversal of fortune. They needed a solution, and they needed it fast. "I might have an option," she said, drawing their attention, "but it's unorthodox." Foster gestured for her to continue. "The facility data I extracted includes their emergency protocols," Sofia explained, consulting her device, "including transportation arrangements for high-priority transfers." "How does that help us?" "Because Colonel Petrov arranged transport for the 3rd prisoner. Transport that's scheduled to depart in 90 minutes from a private airfield 15 kilometers from here." Foster's expression shifted from skepticism to cautious interest. "What kind of transport?" "A specialized aircraft designed for prisoner transfer. Minimal crew, high security." "You're suggesting we intercept the transport and take the aircraft?" Sofia nodded. "It's already cleared for departure through opposition airspace. If we can secure it, we have a direct route to neutral territory." The team exchanged glances, evaluating the audacious proposal. It was dangerous, requiring them to approach rather than avoid opposition forces. But it also offered the only viable escape route currently available. Foster made his decision. "Give me the details. Approach routes, security estimates, time frame." Sofia quickly pulled up the relevant data, presenting a comprehensive assessment of the airfield, the scheduled transport, and the security protocols in place. Her analysis was methodical and thorough, identifying vulnerabilities they could exploit. "The aircraft will be fueled and prepared for immediate departure," she concluded. "Security will be focused on preventing the prisoner from escaping, not on defending against an external assault." Foster nodded slowly. "It's our best option. Maybe our only option." He turned to his team. "New mission, we secure that aircraft. Reynolds, coordinate movement. Diaz, weapons distribution. We move in 10 minutes." As the team prepared for this new objective, Sofia focused on extracting additional intelligence from the facility data. If they were going to commandeer a high-security transport aircraft, they needed every advantage possible. The airfield appeared exactly as the intelligence had indicated. A small private facility with minimal infrastructure but substantial security. Foster's team established observation positions in the surrounding forest, watching as opposition forces prepared the transport aircraft. A mid-sized jet with specialized security features visible even from a distance. 3 external guards, Reynolds reported from his observation position. 2 pilots performing pre-flight checks, unknown number inside the hangar. "The prisoner will be transported in an armored vehicle," Sofia added, consulting her device. "Estimated arrival in 20 minutes based on their protocol timeline." Foster absorbed the information, formulating his approach. "We intercept after the prisoner is loaded. Maximum confusion, minimum casualties." The team acknowledged, checking weapons and equipment as they prepared for the assault. Sofia found herself assigned to the secondary team, responsible for securing the aircraft while the primary team dealt with opposition forces. "You'll need to handle any electronic security on the aircraft," Foster told her. "Can you manage that?" Sofia nodded confidently. The transport uses standard aviation security systems with additional prisoner containment protocols. Nothing I haven't bypassed before. Time passed with excruciating slowness as they waited for the prisoner transport to arrive. Sofia used the opportunity to study the aircraft specifications from the facility data, identifying potential challenges and preparing countermeasures. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.